جسدت معنى العزة والكرامة في زمن المذلة والمهانة، وإن أبطال تلك الغزوتين أمسوا نجوما زاهرة لأهل الأرض قاطبة وسط هذه الظلمات المدلهمة ترشد الحائرين إلى طريق الحرية والإباء.
While tactical preparations for the attack were nearing completion, the entire operation was being questioned at the top, as Al-Qaeda and the Taliban argued over strategy for 2001. Our focus has naturally been on the specifics of the plane operation. But from the perspective of Bin Laden and Mohamed Atef, this operation was only one admitted key element of the unfolding plans for the year. Living in Afghanistan, interacting constantly with the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda leaders would never lose sight of the situation in that country. Bin Laden's consistent priority was to launch a major attack directly against the United States. He wanted the plane's operation to proceed as soon as possible. Khalid al-Mihdhar reportedly told his cousin during the summer of 2001 that Bin Laden was reputed to have remarked, "I will make it happen, even if I have to do it by myself." According to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Bin Laden had been urging him to advance the date of the attacks. In 2000, for instance, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed remembers Bin Laden pushing him to launch the attacks amid the controversy after then Israeli opposition party leader Ariel Sharon's visit to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed claims Bin Laden told him it would be enough for the hijackers simply to down planes rather than crash them into specific targets. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed says he resisted the pressure. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed claims to have faced similar pressure twice more in 2001. According to him, Bin Laden wanted the operation carried out on May 12, 2001, 7 months to the day after the Cole bombing. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed adds that the 9/11 attacks had originally been envisioned for May of 2001. The second time he was urged to launch the attacks early was in June and July of 2001, supposedly after Bin Laden learned from the media that Ariel Sharon would be visiting the White House. On both occasions, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed resisted, asserting that the hijacker teams were not ready. Bin Laden pressed particularly strongly for the latter date in 2 letters, stressing the need to attack early. The second letter reportedly for delivery by Bin Laden's son-in-law, Alz al-Madini. Other evidence corroborates Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's account. For instance, Khalid al-Mihdhar told his cousin that the attacks were to happen in May, but were postponed twice, first to July, then to September. Moreover, one candidate hijacker remembers a general warning being issued in the Al-Qaeda camps in July or early August, just like the warnings issued 2 weeks before the Cole bombings and 10 days before the eventual 9/11 attacks. During the midsummer alert, Al-Qaeda members dispersed within their families. Security was increased, and Bin Laden disappeared for about 30 days until the alert was canceled. While the details of the operation were strictly compartmentalized by the time of the alert, word had begun to spread that an attack against the United States was coming. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed notes that it was generally well known by the summer of 2001 that he was planning some kind of operation against the United States. Many were even aware that he had been preparing operatives to go to the United States, leading some to conclude that Al-Qaeda was planning a near-term attack on U.S. soil. Moreover, Bin Laden had made several remarks that summer hinting at an upcoming attack and generating rumors throughout the worldwide jihadist community. Bin Laden routinely told important visitors to expect significant attacks against U.S. interests soon, and during a speech at the Al-Farouk camp, exhorted trainees to pray for the success of an attack involving 20 martyrs. Others have confirmed hearing indications of an impending attack and have verified that such news, albeit without specific details, had spread across Al-Qaeda. Although Bin Laden's top priority apparently was to attack the United States, others had a different view. Taliban leaders put their main emphasis on the year's military offensive against the Northern Alliance, an offensive that ordinarily would begin in late spring or summer. They certainly hoped that this year's offensive would finally finish off their old enemies, driving them from Afghanistan. From the Taliban's perspective, an attack against the United States might be counterproductive. It might draw the Americans into the war against them just when final victory seemed within their grasp. There is evidence that Mullah Omar initially opposed a major al-Qaeda operation directly against the United States in 2001. Furthermore, by July, with word spreading of a coming attack, a schism emerged from the senior leadership of al-Qaeda. Several senior members reportedly agreed with Mullah Omar. Those who reportedly sided with bin Laden included military commander Mohamed Atef, Suleiman Abu Ghaith, and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. But those said to oppose them were weighty figures in the organization, including Abu Hafs the Mauritanian, Sheikh Saeed al-Masri, and Saif al-Adl. One senior al-Qaeda operative claims to recall bin Laden arguing that attacks against the United States needed to be carried out immediately to support insurgency in the Israeli-occupied territories and protect the presence of U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia. Beyond these rhetorical appeals, bin Laden also reportedly thought an attack against the United States would benefit al-Qaeda by attracting more suicide operatives, elucidating greater donations, and increasing the number of sympathizers willing to provide logistical assistance. Mullah Omar is reported to have opposed this course of action for ideological reasons rather than out of fear of U.S. retaliation. He is said to have preferred for al-Qaeda to attack Jews, not necessarily the United States. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed contends that Omar faced pressure from the Pakistani government to keep al-Qaeda from engaging in operations outside Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda's chief financial manager, Sheikh Saeed, argued that al-Qaeda should defer to the Taliban's wishes. Another source says that Sheikh Saeed opposed the operation both out of deference to Mullah Omar and because he feared the U.S. response to an attack. Abu Hafs the Mauritanian reportedly even wrote bin Laden a message basing opposition to the attacks on the Quran. According to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, in late August, when the operation was fully planned, bin Laden formally notified the al-Qaeda Shura Council that a major attack against the United States would take place in the coming weeks. When some council members objected, bin Laden countered that Mullah Omar lacked authority to prevent al-Qaeda from conducting jihad outside Afghanistan. Though most of the Shura Council reportedly disagreed, bin Laden persisted. The attacks went forward. The story of dissension within al-Qaeda regarding the 9/11 attacks is probably incomplete. The information on which the account is based comes from sources who are not privy to the full scope of al-Qaeda and Taliban planning. Bin Laden and Mohamed Atef, however, probably would have known at least that 1. The general Taliban offensive against the Northern Alliance would rely on al-Qaeda military support, and 2. Another significant al-Qaeda operation was making progress during that summer, a plot to assassinate the Northern Alliance leader, Ahmed Shah Massoud. The operatives, disguised as journalists, were in Massoud's camp and prepared to kill him sometime in August. Their appointment seemed to have been delayed. But on September 9, 2001, the Massoud assassination took place. The delayed Taliban offensive against the Northern Alliance was apparently coordinated to begin as soon as he was killed, and it got underway on September 10th. As they deliberated earlier in the year, bin Laden and Atef would likely have remembered that Mullah Omar was dependent on them for the Massoud assassination and for vital support in the Taliban military operations. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed remembers Atef telling him that al-Qaeda had an agreement with the Taliban to eliminate Massoud, after which the Taliban would begin an offensive to take over Afghanistan. Mohamed Atef hoped that Massoud's death would also appease the Taliban when the 9/11 attacks happened. There are also some scant indications that Omar may have been reconciled to the 9/11 attacks by the time they even occurred.